Hi, my name is James Nicas from the Castle Restaurant in Leicester, Massachusetts, and we're about to embark on another adventure of stories from winecountry.com. I'd like to introduce Amanda Wilson and just go over a kind of a few highlights of my experiences from the 70s on in especially California wine country. If you remember, well, you were young, but if you remember, California was just starting at that point. So we were involved trying to create an identity. Initially, it was Chardonnay. Great grape variety, too many styles in California. They went from light to heavy to highly oaked, very complicated for the American public. Some people loved it, some did not. Then in comes Zinfandel, again, relatively light and fruity to high alcohol, intense. And you know, that grape variety could have been kind of washed right off the face of California had it not been for you know, some companies coming in and making a more pop culture, fruity, entry level for many wine drinkers.
Sure.
And you know, it can go on and on and on. I had a wine teacher who told me when Merlot was coming in that we would see an awful lot of bad Merlot because the tea budding process was just being fast tracked. So we've grown, we've changed. You know, we've delved into Italy, to South Africa, to New Zealand, to Australia. It's just a kind of a natural progression, and I think that the new wave that should really be striking the wines from the Czech Republic. So with that, I will stop talking. Amanda can tell you about the Czech Republic because she's more of the authority there, and then we'll taste a few wines.
Sure, yeah. Thank you, Jim. And I love that background. That history is great. And I think it's really interesting as we talk about the Czech Republic wine region in relation to the evolution of what happened in California. Every wine region goes through, you know, various stages of evolution, and Czech Republic has seen some very dramatic stages, as one might imagine. So the Czechs have been making wine for centuries, right? Many of the, I like to call them new old world regions, right? Because we think of old world as like Italy and France and, you know, the traditional ones. But the Czechs have been making wine just as long, if not longer, than a lot of those regions. But they weren't really on the international stage for various reasons, obviously. And like many countries over there, there were fluid borders with all the many world wars and everything, that they were right in the middle of it, geographically, obviously right in the middle of it. But then when communism came, they got shut down both physically and politically from the rest of the world. So the wines kind of fell off the stage because they had to, all the winemakers had to make state wine. They didn't really have a lot of options or a lot of freedom in what they could do. But still the passion for winemaking was handed down through generations. And so the winemakers, even though they could only make state wine, and so the white grapes went and the red grapes went into Prague and wine was made, not in any other winemaker's brand, all just state wine. They still pass along the traditions and everything about their winemaking from generation to generation, which is really interesting. And so after the Iron Curtain fell, and they were able to kind of reclaim their vineyards and reclaim their histories, they've been producing some really, really amazing wines since. So I think it's really interesting, the evolution, especially in the context of what you just said about California and kind of how that relates.
Well, I think we are on the new wave. So you know, I think it's time to taste a little wine.
All right, let's do it. All right, so this first one, this white wine is a producer, Volarjek, which I'm sure if he heard me pronounce his name and with my American accent, he may cringe a little bit. But Miroslav Volarjek has been making wine in Mykolaiv, which is one of the main towns in the wine region of Moravia over in Czech Republic. And he has some fascinating stories about how he went about getting his vineyards back, and still to this day have to work with the state, work with the government to reclaim the vineyards and keep growing as he has. So this particular wine is a Welsh Riesling, which is pretty common in that area. In fact, they kind of dub Mykolaiv the Welsh Riesling Kingdom because there's a lot of it in that area, and it's one of those grapes that's really indigenous to the Czech Republic. So I think it really represents the region and the style and Moravia wine really, really well. So, cheers.
Cheers.
Or na zdraví, as they say.
Just tremendous nose, very floral and very really upfront in all its aspects.
And I love pouring Welsh Riesling for people because it's usually nothing they've ever had before.
Yeah.
And Welsh Riesling is not related to the Riesling grape either. It's a completely different varietal, which kind of throws people off because I think when they hear Welsh Riesling, they think a little bit that it's going to be like a Riesling, and it's not. It's a flavor profile all in of itself,
Yeah,
which
most
is beautiful. So one of my favorites.
It's quite amazing that you get those floral tones, but it's not light. It's mouth filling.
Yeah, this one has a little body. This one also is a 2016, so I think Americans typically like their whites, right off the off the dock.
We're doing our best to change that.
Exactly. So I love the, and it's more common in Europe, as you likely know, that they'll put a little age on their whites, and you do get a little bit more body, a little bit more structure, a little bit more out of it with a couple of years. So this one is 2016, so I think it's showing really well.
Excellent.
Okay, so our next wine, I brought Rosé, which is by my winemaker Crossnohora Vineyards, and they are a biodynamic producer. So they work really closely with other organic and biodynamic producers in the region to really kind of not evangelize, but help educate and spearhead a lot of the viniculture knowledge in that area around biodynamic farming and winemaking, and so they've been a great partner to work with. They do some brilliant wines. Their wines traditionally are more international varietals. So unlike the first wine where it's more of an indigenous grape, this one is a rosé of Pinot Noir. So it's 100% Pinot Noir. Partially on skins, so where you get your color. It is unfiltered, so you might see it as a little cloudy. So it's more along the lines of their natural wines. They do a few that are very, low intervention, minimal intervention, very minimal sulfites added, all of that. And so this falls in that line there. So, and it's a super fun wine, and it's fun labeling, and it's just an easy drinking one that I'm looking forward to summer with this one. So
We're all looking forward to summer.
I know, right? We all want to be on a patio somewhere. So that's the pink. All right, so definitely get a little cloudy.
That's called natural.
Exactly. I think Pinot Noir rosés is one of my favorite varietal for rosés.
Up front, you get that Pinot fruit in the nose, nice and clean, and relatively dry for a rosé.
It is, yeah.
This is actually quite nice because not only becomes a summer sipper, but it works with food,
Very
which
much
is
so. Yeah.
sometimes a little difficult when you're dealing with something that's lighter in alcohol and potentially lighter in flavor. This has got enough flavor to carry food. So
Yeah. And it's kind of indicative of the region where the reds are typically lighter bodied. And there's, because it's a cooler climate, there's typically a higher level of acidity as well, which I think makes it super food friendly, like super easy drinking.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So this is one of my faves. But I brought you all my faves, so.
That's the way it should be.
Okay, so for our red today, I brought a bottle from Gala Winery, a small family winery, similar in size to Crossnohora. And Jaromir and Elžbieta Gala, a husband and wife team, and it's pretty much them and their family who are doing all of the work in the vineyards and in the winery. This one is a blend of Pinot Noir and Merlot. And one of the things I love about this is the region is known, as I was saying before, about their lighter, kind of refreshing reds. They do some really brilliant, more elegant, more full-bodied reds that is a little unique for the region in general. So I think this is a great one to pour today. So. So the Galas also are focused on sustainability in their vineyards. So they, the last time we were there, we kind of teased because every time we're there, she has more animals that they have acquired for the vineyard. So she was waiting on the sheep to be delivered the next day after the last time we were there. But yeah, they have the philosophy where they have, sheep and horses and animals that are living within the vineyards, to help fertilize. They have apricot trees that are kind of integrated in their vineyards and everything as well. And so they kind of have created their own little ecosystem, on their property, and that's, one of the things that makes them really special. Along with their beautifully, beautifully made wines.
Just love the nose. But I had asked you earlier, but the question on camera would be how this is going to be affected with the new 25% tariff on wines that are high alcohol, and this is 14.1, 14.5.
I think so, yeah.
So I mean, you can smell the alcohol. You get the definition of both grape varieties, and it is almost haunting. Quite lovely. Real long finish. Great acidity. Wonderful upfront fruit, but the balance is there.
It's extremely well balanced, which I love. It's very harmonious.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's on a cold winter night or
This
a
is-
hot summer day. It all
Exactly.
works. Yeah.
Exactly.
But it's the whole thing about sustainability is a major thing. I mean, California's gone through it a number of years, and my wife actually worked for a certified organic vineyard, and they would bring in hundreds of thousands of ladybugs to take care of the aphids.
In lieu of pesticides.
So they didn't have to use pesticides, and then they would bring in another variety to take care of the ladybugs. So
Yeah.
it's the whole kind of thought and process on taking care of the ecosystem is quite major, and it really is the way to be and the way to go.
Yeah, and it's really important to them, especially in this region, because they have really been rebuilding their vineyards since they've been able to take them back since communism, right? So they've spent a lot of time and a lot of energy in the viniculture and just investing in the vineyards and the soils and all of that. So when we started importing these wines, actually, I reached out to a couple of the government agencies just to see if they have support for exporting their wines like some other countries do. And the feedback I was given was they're still investing in the winemakers and their everything from equipment to the land and all of that they're really focusing their investments on, and you can see it. So they're very proud of what they've done and how they're taking care of the land and the vineyards and how that's grown.
Well, these three examples are actually, perfect for what's coming.
Yeah.
And we're all looking for the next step, the next level, and these are really ideal for consumers because the wines are just spectacular.
Thank you. I'm so glad you like them.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Well, I was done talking. I'm just going to, one quick story, how we all met.
Oh.
And it's going to sound kind of like the intro to a bad joke, but two young ladies walk into my restaurant.
This bar.
And sit at the bar, and pre-pandemic, of course. And luckily, my sous chef told me that maybe I should go out front and take care of customers, and they could do the cooking. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, sure.
Yep.
And we met and we talked, and they ordered a little food and went through my wine list, which is about 700 pieces, and picked one of the most esoteric, unutilized red wine on my list, a red Sancerre, which is, Sancerre is a lovely town in the Loire Valley that makes tremendous Sauvignon Blanc, but very little red wine. Mm-hmm. And this, for me, was an older vintage and a perfect red. And they had the red, and we continued to talk, and the next thing, we're doing tastings, and I'm using the wines for dinner, and here we are in the middle, or the middle end of the pandemic, and
yeah.
We're still tasting wines, and and I'm happy that they're in Massachusetts,
Yep.
and they are for sale in retail stores.
Yeah, no, thank you. We were so excited to see that red Sancerre on the list. I was like, I knew I moved to the right place. So thank you for your wine list, making me feel a little bit more at home. That was fun.
Cool.
Yeah, after a long day of unpacking.
Cool. And we are missing Heidi.
Yes.
The other half of Ahtel.
Yep.
But at some point, we'll all get together again.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Cheers.